You're recording.
Well, hey, I want to welcome everybody here to the call this evening. I'm glad that y'all decided to share a little bit of time with us, and hopefully you brought some guests here that aren't involved with you, and maybe just to hear a little bit more about Aegea. Now, I know that there's a lot of webinars that are done with fancy slides and everything else. Well, that's just not me. I'm sorry. I'm not quite that technical, but I can sit here and I can share with you as to what my background is, where I come from, why I am here with Aegea, and why you might consider Aegea a great vehicle for your success as well. So with that being said, let me tell you that I'm one of those has-beens is what I get to tell everybody now. I'm retired now for the last 21 years. I was one of those guys that ran around the Middle East and the Western Bulge of Africa for a little over 21 years with a green beret on my head, and got banged up and beat up along the way, and that's okay. I volunteered for it. And the last time I cracked my back, which was the third time, well, I did a little more than that. I actually crushed the bottom three vertebrae in my back. They looked at me and the medical people said, "You can't do this anymore." And you know what? I looked at them, I said, "I absolutely agree with you." Anyway, so they medicaled me out of the service at that point. I will tell you that my income from the military, my last month in July of 1998, was approximately 1/10 of what I made from my part-time business in network marketing. Now, I tell you that not to say that I was the smartest person in the world, but I could take some instructions and I could learn some things. And one of the things that I learned was that there's a better way of making an income than getting shot at. So with that being said, I got put out because of my back originally, and then there were some other challenges. And I was young enough at that time to sort of rehab myself and feel better and be able to do the things that I still wanted to do for the most part. Give you an idea, my wife and I rode 10 miles a day around the lake that we live on. We can swim in the pool, which we did that as well today. I can work out in the yard, which thank heavens I didn't do that today. Did it yesterday, but not today. Got water surrounding three sides of us. So we got our sentries out here. Some people call them gators. They keep us nice and safe. And it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful life. But I did start having some challenges. I've been moved down here now for about 6.5 years. But when you get beat up like I did, and like I know that some of y'all probably did on this call, you have those recurrences, especially as the years go on, and that's what happened to me. And it got so bad that my back wasn't allowing me even to lie down to go to sleep. And that really is kind of a bad way to be. I mean, I've slept standing up before, walking through the jungles of Western Africa, but it's not a fun way to live your life on a daily basis. Well, a friend of mine that had known the kind of pain that I had been in called me up one day and he said, "Look, I'm not out. I don't have any pain anymore." And you got to understand, he fell off of a roof a couple of years before and really messed up his whole entire left side. And he was like me. He didn't want to do the surgeries and the drugs and all of that good stuff. So I said, "Well, how the heck did that happen?" And he says, "Well, I'm using this new product that is wearable technology, and I think it'll help you too." And I'm like, "Really?" And he says, "Yeah, I just want you to try it. Go to this site." And he gave me the site, and I went there, and this is back in May of last year. So it's been about 14 months or so ago. And I looked at it and didn't have a lot of information at the time, but I said, well, what the heck have I got to lose? A little bit of pain? Hey, that's always a good thing. So I ordered the product, got it in, and about 5 or 6 days later, I opened up the package and I thought it was the funniest thing that I had ever looked at. I really did. I said, are these people absolutely nuts that they think that I'm going to take a couple of these little holograms and put them on either side of my spine and my lower back, and that's going to get rid of the pain? And then I caught myself and I said, you know, Frank, you just spent a few bucks on this thing. You better just do exactly as they told you to do and prove them wrong. And that's how I started my experience with the GIA. Well, I did that afternoon. I put one of each of the relief and the nitros on either side of my lower spine, and went to bed that night. And, you know, I had a real sharp, piercing, stabbing type of pain in that lower back. And so the next morning, my wife, knowing that the nights were the worst for me, she asked me how the pain was. And I said, you know, it really wasn't any better, but instead of being sharp and stabbing, it was dull and aching, you know? And then the next day, and then the next day, and every day morning she'd ask me. And then it got to about the 6th morning, and she asked me that same question. And I looked at her across the breakfast bar. I said, you know about it? I didn't have any pain last night. I still had some other challenges I'll talk to you about in a minute, but I had no pain. Now, well, I shouldn't use the word pain. I know that's incorrect. I should say discomfort. But especially back then, that's the only thing that we knew to call it. I mean, it hurt. So, got rid of that discomfort. Well, sometime just before that, actually about a year and a half before I got involved with the GIA, I started having some other issues. And they were also derived from the military. And I was starting to wake up and having these real extreme, violent nightmares, and waking up and striking out and basically scaring the heck out of my wife. So anyway, with that being said, I thought the dreams would go away, and they didn't. Unfortunately. So after about 3 months of getting about an hour and a half of sleep a night, I finally called up the VA and said, hey, I got this issue. I got a challenge. Make me an appointment. And the VA, in their infinite wisdom, canceled my appointment 3 different times. So about 90 days later, I got in there to see him. And I guess after 6 months of an hour and a half of sleep at night, I looked kind of bad. So they decided that maybe they needed to really take it seriously. And I saw a whole bunch of doctors and psychiatrists and all of that other good stuff. And one day they called me in and they said, well, Frank, you do realize that you have XYZ, because I don't want to call any medical terms out here. And you've also got this other disorder. And I'm like, well, heck. Why the heck would I have that 18 years after I got out of the military? And they're like, well, we can't really tell you why you have that problem. We can just tell you that you do, and that sometimes it takes a while for these things to come up and for you to be challenged with them. I'm like, great, you know what it is. Give me a pill and make me all better. So about 10 days later, they sent me these 3 different pills in the mail. I couldn't pronounce any of them. I went on Dr. Google and looked them up, and with all the horrific side effects they had, I was like, they're got to be absolutely nuts if they think I'm going to take this stuff. Next doctor's appointment, came back, put all 3 drugs on the desk of the doctor and said, hey, I ain't opened any of those 3, not going to open any of those 3, not going to take them every day for the rest of my life, not even for 1 day. And they tried to convince me otherwise and telling me why, you used to being up in front of 10 and 12,000 people and talking and having no problem. And now you can't be around 2 people. And, you're having these nightmares and you're having this and you're having that. And I'm like, well, that's great. That's all fine and good, but I'm not going to do that. And I won't go into all the other drugs, the sleeping drugs and everything else that they wanted me to take. I'm not going to do it. So after trying the products and they worked for my back, a couple of days later, I found out that an acquaintance of mine from back in the 90s was vice president of this company, Mr. Eric Swain. And so I knew some friends that still knew him really well. I got his private cell phone number, called him up. We got caught up with the past. I told him my story and told him he had a customer for life, and because it took care of my discomfort. So then I had to tell him about this other problem I was having with the dreams and all of that and anxiety. And he told me, he says, you know, you got this other product in your package when it came in. Didn't anybody tell you about it? And I said, well, no. And I guess I didn't know enough about it to do anything about it. And he says, well, look, take one of these relief packages and put it up underneath of your left collarbone. And I'm like, that's it? And he said, that's it. And I said, you just don't understand how bad my dreams are, Eric. He's like, look, it's going to help you. Let me know and if it doesn't. But I think you're going to sleep better. You're going to get over the dreams and that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? That night, with no other drugs in my system, I got about 4 hours of sleep. Now, that was a lot more than I had been getting. The second night, I got about 10 hours of sleep. And when I finally came downstairs, my wife looked up at me and said, you know, I've been up there twice just to check on you to see if you were still breathing. And because that's how unusual it was for me. But ever since then, I've been able to sleep 6 to 8 hours a night. Don't have the kind of discomfort that I used to have and my lower back. And when you got products like that, and these are just a couple of the products that I'm talking about, it is a pretty awesome deal. Now, we have some other fantastic products I haven't touched on. The Freshness Card, which keeps my wife's flowers good for 2 weeks instead of 1 week. Another one that is just now in the breaking point of coming out, which is the coffee, which has got so many different ingredients in it, over 3 dozen, that I can't even name them all off. But I can tell you that from trying it, we were able to try the coffee. The CEO of the company sent us some. It not only tasted good, it's got all the good stuff in it for you, and it made you feel good. Now, that was something that was different. My wife and I looked at each other, and I'll tell you, there ain't nobody that can drink a cup of this coffee and within 10 to 20 minutes across the kitchen table, you can't look at them and ask them how they feel. And they're going to have a smile on their face because it really does make you feel great. Now, having said all of that, we have some fantastic products. You can get all into the science and all of that stuff by going to the website of the person that brought you here. But I'd also like you to look at, well, if you're sold on the products, then maybe, just maybe, you might be opened up for an opportunity. I mean, come on. Do any of us make as much money as we need or want to make? And what kind of money is that? Do you have a job like I did for a little over 20 years in the military where, you were exchanging time for money, which is really called a linear income, and you do that in any kind of basic job that you have? Or do you have a passive income to where you can do something right one time and then get paid continuously? And when that was first explained to me in detail in network marketing, I thought, you've got to have an awful lot of money to invest in something to make the kind of income that I'd be comfortable with, so to speak, and really could go out there and brag about, so to speak. And I didn't have that kind of money coming out of the military. But I was taught this before I got out of the military. And I had my ups and downs with network marketing. I had, my first endeavor. I sponsored 11 people, couldn't teach them how to sponsor anybody, and didn't have any help. Second thing that I did, that's where I started to learn what network marketing was all about, because I found myself a mentor. He wasn't, by the way, in my upline. He wasn't, certainly wasn't in my downline. I wish he had been. But we hit it off. He had made over $8 million in his first 3 years in the 80s of being involved in network marketing. So that was somebody I knew right away that I could learn from, or certainly needed to learn from. And so I tried to absorb everything that he would teach me. And because he knew that I wanted to learn, and because he knew I implemented what he was suggesting to me to do, he went forward and gave me even more and more advanced information. And so it just comes to tell you that network marketing is about finding the right company as far as the right products, but it's also about finding a mentor, somebody that can teach you and help you along the way and guide you. And we have a lot of those great leaders here in AGEA, by the way. And we also have some great people in the corporate arena, from our CEO, Jeff Cohen, and from our Vice President, Mr. Eric Swain. Both are willing to share and assist and help you in any way that they can, and keep the company up and running and bringing out these new products all the time. I mean, it's absolutely awesome. And they've learned that they care, that to learn to care about people was more important than caring about the bottom dollar. And that's what network marketing is about. A lot of people think it's just a product or just about the income, but it's not. If you're unwilling to learn to take care of people and to put them first, whether they're in your downline or whatever, that's what's important. And that's how you build a team and have a successful team to come up and help not only yourself, but to help them. And you turn around and you assist them in every way that you possibly can, whether that's three-way phone calls or trainings on a random basis, or like our Saturday trainings that we have that are absolutely awesome for company-wide. Whether that is helping out on webinars for the opportunity like the one that we're having here this evening, just to have people share with what is possible. You know, I'm just an old retired guy from the military, and the military didn't make a whole lot of money. But here I am in Florida, surrounded by water on three sides of me. Got a beautiful home, a pool, a boat, and even built a shooting range out on the front of the property. And I mean, it is an absolutely idyllic life. And I tell you that because we did that all before AGEA. And it was because we were able to create these residual incomes that kept on coming into us. And I hadn't been involved in network marketing for about 5 years before I got involved with AGEA. And the reason I got involved with AGEA wasn't because of the income anymore. It was because of the awesome results of the products that we had. Now, when you can take an awesome product and couple it with a fantastic way of creating an income to where you can make some money for doing some things one time, but then to create this income that will just continue on and on and on because you did something right once. Now that's an awesome opportunity. And that's what network marketing is, an awesome opportunity. Don't care what anybody else says about it. Don't care what anybody else says about, they got this high polluting job over here and they make $100,000 a month, or this one over here making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month. I don't care, or a year, I should say. And the reality is those are the kind of incomes that you can make on a monthly basis. I don't know if I'm really supposed to say that on this type of a call, but we don't brag a lot about income. But the reality is, I couldn't live where I live if it hadn't have been for network marketing. I couldn't live where I live if for a couple of years. We didn't make almost $1 million in a row. And the only reason we did it is because we learned some basic fundamentals of being able to take something and share it with somebody else and get them to see that there was an opportunity in their ability to share it with them and that we would help them along the way. Now, that being said, I mean, I really wish we could open this up and ask questions and answer questions and all of that. We don't have the time to do that. The one thing that I would highly suggest that you do, if you're listening to this type of a call for the first time, is to get back with the person that invited you here and find out what is it what is this network marketing thing? How can it create these types of incomes? And how can I make it work for myself? And that's what's important. If the person that invited you here can't be the one that answers those questions, they know somebody in their line of sponsorship that can share that kind of information with you and that can assist and help you in doing those kinds of things. And I think that's probably the most important thing that you can take away from this, is that anybody can do this, and that if you have the will and the drive, you can do this. And the stick-to-itiveness. Yes, it's passive. Yes, you can do it in a relatively short period of time. But you know what? It will take some effort on your part and some time on your part to get her done. Now, with that being said, I want to say I appreciate everybody that has come onto this call this evening, and tell you that I really do appreciate your taking these last few minutes with me. And get back to the person that invited you here and find out more. Get all your questions answered, okay? Y'all have an awesome evening. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, Kara, if you can stop the recording, we'll be good to go.